Hello, welcome to Go Library. This is Dr. Ming. Today, I invite Maura Moynihan, American journalist, to comment current events. Hello, Maura. Hello.
Ni hao, Dr. Ming, and to all your listeners.
Hi, hello, Maura. Um, my first question, yeah. Days ago, you published an open letter addressing to Senator Dianne Feinstein. So tell us why you did that.
Well, Senator Dianne Feinstein, I have known her since 1992 when she became senator from California. And now she's the senior ranking Democratic senator from California. The junior senator is Kamala Harris, who's just been nominated as the vice president on the ticket with former Vice President Joe Biden, former senator from Delaware, Joe Biden. And anyway, at the end of July, to the beginning of August, before the Senate goes on its annual summer recess, Dianne Feinstein, to my shock and disgust, stood up in the Senate Judiciary Committee and defended the CCP after it has destroyed our country, ruined our economy, caused death and mayhem and destruction. She actually said, and you can watch the tape of the hearings, it is available. She said, "I want to salute the great giant across the Pacific." She wasn't talking about Japan. She was talking about the CCP. And she was, because the hearing was about whether American companies and individuals would have the right to sue the CCP for damages because of the CCP virus. And that would mean stripping China of its sovereign immunity, which prevents this kind of lawsuit from going forward. And she was not standing up for Americans, not standing up for her own California constituents, but standing up for the CCP. And it got even worse. She said, "I believe China is a respectable nation among nations, and this would be a big mistake. They've lifted millions out of poverty and all that stuff." Well, this really got me mad. So I shot off an open letter to her saying, I listened in shock, nay, horror, to your defense of a genocidal dictatorship that holds 1.4 billion people in bondage with no elections and no free press, and has spread a bioweapon around the world. You made no mention, Senator Feinstein, of the death and destruction that has befallen the American people. Which side are you on? And I also went into some detail about the fact she had a Chinese spy, this gentleman, on her Senate staff for 20 years. And in 2018, the FBI arrested him for being an agent of the CCP. Then the story kind of died, as usual. Mainstream media always gives her and the Democrats an easy pass. It wasn't always like that, but it is that way now. And when she was mayor of San Francisco before she became a senior senator, or a senator from California, and she made Shanghai the sister city. And she's a really good friend of Jiang Zemin, whom, as we know, runs the Black Hands Gang out of Shanghai, and whose family built the Three Gorges Dam, which is looking a little bit wobbly these days. Oh, like Jiang himself. You know, have you noticed he's dyeing his hair pink? At the last party conference, he's sitting there, his hair was like, he's had some facelifts and everything. Doesn't look very good. And so it's absolutely shocking that she's gotten away with this for all these years. And the mainstream media just covers it up, no big deal. Well, this was too much for me. And I'm happy to report that my letter went viral. Not only did it go viral, it was published by my friend John Solomon on his news site, Just the News, which has excellent reporting on China. And I encourage your American listeners to follow it and follow him on Twitter. And so now more and more people are talking about it. You should have seen all the comments that came crashing into my email, all my social media, especially from Tibetans. Tibetans feel particularly betrayed by Feinstein because she made a big song and dance about how she was supportive of His Holiness Dalai Lama and the rights of the Tibetan people and the Uyghurs and the minorities living under the CCP. You know, Democrats are so woke, that expression woke, about minority rights everywhere but the CCP. And her husband, Richard Blum, used his wife's Senate seat to become a multi-millionaire many times over with Chinese investments.
Yes.
with his good friend, Jiang Zemin, one of the biggest criminals walking the earth today. You know, he started PLAC, the PLAC, the private Gestapo, when the Falun Gong overnight had more members than the CCP. Is when he started the crackdown on Falun Gong. He extended it to Muslims, to Buddhists, to Christians, to everyone. And he still gets away with it, and she gets away with it. Now, Richard Blum runs the American Himalayan Foundation. It has an office in Kathmandu, and as we know, Kathmandu, Nepal, has been tragically completely taken over by the CCP. It's a Hindu majority country. There's only two in the world, India and Nepal, and its cultural and economic a neighbor to the south. India is its most important trading partner. But this summer, we've seen a really bold action from the CCP of taking over Nepal and putting up military bases at the Nepali-Indian border, which was an open, uncontested border for years. So I got a lot of emails from Tibetans saying, oh my God, is this possible? We've been cheated, we've been lied to. And it's true, you know, the Tibetans attracted a lot of people who pretended to be their friends, but were really working for the CCP. And a lot of us believe that Richard Blum, there he is again, charming fellow, and Richard Gere, who took over some years back the International Campaign for Tibet, where I worked in the early 90s. But I had not set foot in their office for years because they tout the party line. You know, let's help the cute little Tibetan refugees and don't say anything that would upset the big boys in Beijing. You know, just like kuchi kuchi inji jindak, paisa melegia. That's a little mix of Tibetan and Hindi for, oh, please, rich Western donor, please give money to the poor little Tibetan refugees. Well, that's really insulting to the Tibetan people. And that diminishes the Tibetan cause, which is really a geostrategic issue more than anything else. And so, you know, he's played this game. They played a nifty game. And a lot of us believe that Richard Gere and Dick Blum, which at every Tibet function, and sort of anytime the Dalai Lama was in Washington, they were always there, that they, Richard Blum in particular, I'm not so sure about Richard Gere. He's just not very smart about geopolitical issues. And he's got his movie star career, which is his priority. Not saving Tibet, it's, you know, being the big movie star. But a lot of us believe that Richard Blum was sent in by Jiang Zemin and others to weaken the Tibet movement, make it stupid, useless, and they succeeded.
All right. So, husband has used the wife's influence to make money by collaborating with the CCP.
Yeah,
Marvelous.
And he got away with it. He was investigated a couple of times over the years. You know, like FBI tried to get him, but he always slipped the news. She's so powerful. She's so powerful. So we call her Beijing. You know, we call her Beijing Dianne. You know, there she is. She really works for the CCP. She works for the CCP. And she didn't even mention the suffering that the CCP virus has caused her California constituents. It was shocking. But now General Rob Spalding, whom I greatly admire, who wrote a book called Stealth War, and is had just left the was the National Security Commission, I'm not sure, but he was fighting. He's a China hawk who was fighting the CCP collaborators and really had a tough time. He's been tweeting about her husband, saying, "Isn't this conflict of interest?" Because she said, "Oh, there's a great firewall between me and my husband. There's no way he would ever have access to my Senate connections to promote his career." Oh, really? And how come she's the second richest member of the U.S. Senate? Senators do not make very great high salaries. I should know. My father was senior senator from New York for 24 years. And he never used his position, and neither did I, to enrich ourselves financially. I used my access to power to try to get people to understand the danger of the CCP and to support His Holiness Dalai Lama. And that's why I'm poor. But that's okay. I don't have to live with shame. I don't have to live with bad karma. I don't have blood dripping off my hands. But she does, and her husband does, because look who they work with.
Yeah. It's a shame, isn't it?
Well, it's disgraceful that she has not been outed, and that the case with her driver, her CCP driver, just got dropped. Or we were trying to find out what happened to the driver. Some people said that he went back to China. They let him go. He was also her liaison with the Chinese embassy in Washington and the Chinese consulate in San Francisco.
Yes, that's true.
And this
That's
was
true.
like a one-day story it died. So I've been digging through the internet, finding these stories and reposting them on my social media accounts and getting tons of likes and shares, and people are going, oh my God, we had no idea. Well, it really is true that this election is going to be about whether China is going to take control of America.
Yeah.
And you know full well that the boys on Wall Street got us into this mess.
Yeah.
With their Chimerica project. Chimerica Inc. was supposed to work out so well, right? Well, it hasn't worked out very well now, has it?
No. Thank God for that.
Well, it's not over yet.
Because
there's still a lot of guys on Wall Street, and the big problem in the Trump administration is Secretary of the Treasury Steve Mnuchin.
Yeah.
Because he's a Bush guy. You know, when the Trump people came in, they asked the Republican National Committee, the RNC, to help them staff their cabinet. And so he got in there, and he's slowing everything down. I just heard from some sources that in Washington that he's kind of spooked the White House, that you can't decouple too fast. And fortunately, President Trump signed an executive order forcing Chinese companies to finally be audited like every other companies, like American companies, on the New York Stock Exchange. And it was Obama and Biden passed a rule in 2013 that exempted Chinese companies from audits on the New York Stock Exchange. Now, why is this not front page news? Oh, because the media is covering up. Because the media is also in cahoots with the CCP.
Yeah.
The New York Times announced that they're going to stop running their weekly color ads from China Daily. But they didn't say they were not going to take money from China Daily.
No.
Or send their journalists on junkets with the CCP and Xinhua and all that stuff. So the problem is, as Secretary Pompeo said in a recent speech, unlike the Soviet Union, we have American elites allowed the CCP access to all the institutions in our society, the higher institutions.
Yeah.
They control Harvard, Princeton, Yale, the New York Times, CNN is called China News Network.
Yeah.
And so getting rid of them is going to be a lot harder because the Soviet Union didn't have this kind of access.
No, we even got the news that days ago, a ex-CIA official was arrested in Hawaii, and before his arrest, he had been working for the CCP for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And he accessed the top-level secret.
Yeah.
Thinking about that, and somebody commented that this is just the tip of the iceberg. Thinking how many people, how many officials in your intelligence community have been working for the CCP.
Oh,
so
many.
Wow. Oh,
so
wow.
he was a Chinese national. He was from Hong Kong, and he became a naturalized American citizen.
Yes.
But these stories are not new. They just don't get a lot of coverage. I have followed these stories for years and years and years, Ming. I have a file I've printed out. Like every week, I would tell people, you don't believe me? Just sit in front of your laptop and Google Chinese espionage, United States of America, and convictions of Chinese spies working in America. You will see so many stories. The problem is the CIA, the FBI, law enforcement, Homeland Security all prioritized Islamic terrorism. And I had a good friend, my friend Mark, he worked for the FBI for many, many years. And I had, worked on him for many years about getting to understand the threat from the CCP. And he had many cases in Washington, just outright Chinese espionage. But he went to his bosses and they said, we don't have a budget for that. So they would always let the Chinese go, and they arrest kids for smoking pot. But they let these agents, a lot of them are Westerners. For a while there, 60 Minutes from CBS, not anymore, because now they're on the bandwagon like all the other media companies. Be nice to the CCP, don't upset them. No. They were doing really good investigative reports of Americans taking bribes from the CCP, Americans who worked for the Pentagon and military companies, and there was some incredible underground footage with and literally the CCP agent handing the Americans, like an envelope, a brown bag full of cash. Yeah,
but not much actually. Not very much actually.
I was going to say they bought them cheap.
Yes, just for that guy, he only got about a few thousands, or just Yeah, 50,000. I said, what? That's very cheap.
They sold
It's
out the United States of America for cheap change to a
yeah.
genocidal dictatorship that tortures children in concentration camps. What's wrong with these people? What's wrong with our society? I guess they thought it was okay because Wall Street, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, our former presidents, they all normalized the CCP. So I guess they thought it was okay.
It's a shame.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, there is a Chinese spy targeting on Dalai Lama, His Holiness Dalai Lama, and
Mm-hmm.
Tibetans got arrested in New Delhi. You know that?
Yes,
You
of
know,
course. Of
yeah.
course. I follow all the news about the Tibetan community in India and Nepal because it's the only Tibetan community that is truly accessible to Tibet researchers, unlike the poor people inside Chinese occupied Tibet.
Mm.
And that was a very interesting case because that guy had come into Nepal, from China to Nepal, because since this Maoist government has taken over Nepal, it's been going on for many years. In 2008, the monarchy was abolished and the Maoists just completely took over. But now it's really blatant. But for about 10 years now, any Chinese national can get visa on arrival in Kathmandu, capital of Nepal, and get a 10-year multiple entry business visa. So this has anybody can fly into Kathmandu, get a 10-year multiple entry visa, and this man was able to enter India overland from Nepal. And he married a woman from Mizoram, which is in the northeast part of India, near the Tibetan border, and shares some cultural similarities to Tibet. So he got access to Indian citizenship and Indian residency card. I don't know if he had a full passport. No, he was caught with 5 passports, something like that. But he was running a money laundering scheme
Yes.
out of Majnu Katila, which is the little Tibetan enclave in Old Delhi, where all the Tibetans stay when they come through New Delhi, and has a little Tibetan monastery, and it's filled with Chinese spies for many years. But for the most part, they were what we call Chinese Tibetans. Tibetans who were raised under the Chinese occupation, like we call Nepali Tibetans, Tibetans who are refugees in Nepal, Indian Tibetans, Tibetans who were fortunate enough to live with His Holiness Dalai Lama in Mother India. And there have been many cases over the years of the Indian government arresting Chinese Tibetans who were spies. And there was one very frightening case. It was about 10 years ago, where a guy called Pempa Tsering, he was about 33 years old at the time, very vicious looking man, was arrested by the Indian government for being an assassin for the PLA. He was working in Dharamsala at the Dalai Lama's Office of Security. And my friends in Indian intelligence told me when they arrested him and took him in, he put up a big fight. And he said, "Why are you taking me in? I told the Tibetans that I'm a PLA agent. How come you didn't know before?" So it's been, and so the Indian government has given Dalai Lama more security. In the old days, it was so free and open, before he got the Nobel Prize, he could just walk up in Dharamsala, sit at his teaching, and talk to him. You could get private. Now he's got security, very, very, very tight security around him. Thank goodness. I want to thank the Indian government for the security they provide to His Holiness, because there was so many assassination attempts on his life. But again, this story about the Chinese guy, what was he called? Danny Peng, he had one of those names. Yeah. It blew up all over India. In the old days, these stories were, again, like Senator Feinstein having the spy on herself, a one-day story. Well, ever since the PLA launched an attack on India from Chinese-occupied Tibet last spring, started a border war, everything has changed in India. I'm on the phone with friends from India all the time. They say now the media is reporting on it. The people are in the streets are burning, Chinese goods. The Indian government, unlike the U.S. government, has already banned TikTok and Zoom.
I think Indian people, this time they have acted very, very promptly, which is much better. So the U.S. should follow suit like that. They react very, very promptly. I think the tide has changed, which is great. Now talk about more Indian. So India. Is set to exclude Huawei and ZTE from its 5G rollout next year. And so it is so great, isn't it?
Oh, thank God.
So it's also for the national security. And also, I think the Indian people have waken up to the threat imposed by the Chinese government, of course. And also, you mentioned that according to Indian intelligence, the wars, are being planned by Beijing. Could you elaborate that for us, please?
Yes, this is very important. Oh, I just want to make one point about why we can't get TikTok and Huawei and Zoom banned here. Is because they immediately went out and hired a team of lobbyists in Washington.
Yeah, yes.
And in fact, a friend of mine sent me an advertisement for a Huawei lobbyist job. I mean, it was risible, but this shows that money can buy you as much corruption as you want, as much influence as you want. Say, like, looking for an American national to help promote Huawei's goals. Huawei's goals? Yeah, torture, murder, surveillance, concentration camps. And you know that the phone was ringing off the hook because it's a big salary.
Yeah.
Indian government is different. They don't have that kind of lobbyist system that the American government has. India is much more nationalist that way, and more protectionist that way. But back to the wars, this is very important because my friends in Indian intelligence, they always have the best info on the CCP.
Yes.
Much more, way before Americans get it. Because they have to deal with the CCP and the PLA breathing down their northern border. For centuries, it was an uncontested border between Tibet and India. And it was just pilgrims, really, and traders that would come back and forth. And it was the trail. You had to go through a bit of Nepal, western Nepal, to get to Tibet, to go to Mount Kailash, the sacred mountain in western Tibet, sacred to the Hindus and the Buddhists. And so for centuries, it was just sort of an open border salt trade. And now it is the PLA at every single one of those old passes. And they have the strategic high ground. And the Indian intelligence officials and Indian army guys that I know, they all know this. They've told me for years and years, Maura, what are we going to do? Because they've got the high ground of Asia. Here's a map of the Tibetan Plateau. Here's India. There's Xinjiang. And this shows how it is, as an old Tibetan friend of mine said, Tibet is a country defined by altitude. And it wasn't until the 20th century, the era of mechanized warfare, the tank and the airplane, that the PLA armies could ever get into Tibet. And so now they're there and they have all their reinforcements. Of course, they lied when they said a ceasefire. There was supposed to be a ceasefire. Then what they did is they brought thousands and thousands of reinforcements from other parts of China to the Indian border, because the Tibetan Plateau has been completely militarized. I saw it with my own eyes in my trip to Tibet. And so here's the latest, which is very disturbing. As we've noticed, I read Global Times and Xinhua every day. Other people have normal lives. They learn to play the clarinet, or they learn to knit, or they garden. Me, I just read CCP propaganda all day.
But you are the top class CCP specialist.
Oh, thank you. I try. Because, we should study them. Just go to their websites. They have it all translated into every language. Read all about it. Can read all about what their plans are. Well, for months now, Papashi has been sending out messages to the Chinese people. Prepare for war. Get ready for battle. They always say this. PLA generals say we must tie up the horses and be ready and all that stuff. They always say that about India and about Nepal and about the Dalai Lama and stuff. But they say about the West too. But I've heard, and we've all seen, that they're doing military exercises near Japan and near Taiwan.
Yes.
That they're planning a triple strike for September, or maybe the end of this month, on Japan, Taiwan, and the Philippines. To draw the West into a conflict, particularly the United States. We're in the middle of a very fractious election cycle where the CCP virus has crippled our country. We don't even know if we'll be able to go to voting booths or not. We still can't even go to church. We still can't even go get our hair cut in a lot of places. It's crazy. So, if they do this, one theory advanced is it's so the Democrats can say that Trump is a warmonger and that he started it. And he wants to pull the country into another war. When, all these Democrats are so hysterical about Trump putting tariffs on China, and it should be a bipartisan issue. I'm a Democrat, or was. I don't like the Democratic Party of today. I don't relate to it at all. They all rolled over and played dead for George Bush's wars in Afghanistan and Iraq that cost us $8 trillion. They all voted for him, except for Bernie Sanders, who was my hero, who I voted for in the primaries. And so it's really going to be a test for the West. I mean, this will really be the test. I wrote about this years ago when I wrote an essay for the Epoch Times called My Tibet Manifesto, and I just gave up trying to get funding. I couldn't get any funding for my work on the hydro dams. You know, I thought I would get, you know, look how big Tibet is, look how important Tibet is. And the Chinese Communist Party gets so hysterical when you mention the Dalai Lama to deflect attention from the mines, dams, and war games on the Tibetan Plateau. And so I wrote, you know, what's the West going to do if they strike Taiwan and Japan and the Philippines? Are we going to blush and sit on our hands and go, oh, gee, that's really not nice. Please stop. It's not going to work. It's a sign of weakness, don't you think?
Yeah, I still don't understand why people could sort of like imagine that would work. That's just a fantasy. Yes, indeed. I read a report today. It mentioned that India, Japan, and Australia, they are now working a trilateral so-called supply chain initiative in order to sort of like reduce their dependence on China and to counter China's bully. So do you have an idea about it?
Oh, thank God. You know, if anything good comes out of the terrible pandemic and the CCP virus, I have noticed that more and more people on the street, not the elite, we're seeing just how deep in bed the elite is with the CCP because they keep defending it here, you know. But the man in the street, 9 out of 10 Americans in all polls see the Chinese government as a malign and malevolent actor. And of course, the Japanese and the Indians have had to deal with it because they're in Asia. It's in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
They're stealing American technology to increase their military capacity. It was Bill Clinton who spoke last night at the virtual convention, who is a pedophile and a rapist. The more information has come out with the Jeffrey Epstein files being unsealed, and his collaborator Ghislaine Maxwell now in jail in New York City.
Yeah.
Thanks to New York prosecutors. And last year, Jeffrey Epstein was arraigned in the Daniel Patrick Moynihan courthouse, named after my dad. I had to go by my picture every day. I was glad about that. Because I knew about the Epstein, you know, sex ring for years. And the Democrats just turned a blind eye. You know, they're so woke about everything except the CCP and Bill Clinton's rape victims. Well, he did all these military exchanges with China and basically gave them access to all of our nuclear capacity. You know, and it was Bill Gates who just inducted into the Chinese Institute of Engineering to help them expand their nuclear capacity. How was this not front page news? So, of course, I do notice there's always very different reporting about China in Indian and Japanese press. Always much tougher and more accurate. So that's where I go for a lot of my news sources. And I've always admired Shinzo Abe, because Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, is one of the only Asian leaders who did not bow to CCP pressure and still permits the Dalai Lama to come to Japan for Buddhist teachings and for public talks. A one by one, when Obama did not meet the Dalai Lama in 2009, a domino effect happened. Where all over the world, people threw the Dalai Lama and the Tibet issue under the bus to their own peril. And now it's different in Southeast Asian nations. Thailand was the first country to invite the Dalai Lama in '66 from India to come meet, and they refused the Dalai Lama a visa in 2000 when Thaksin Shinawatra was prime minister. And we know he works with the CCP because, fortunately, the Thai government found him guilty of corruption, and he fled the country, and he's basically living in Beijing. He's spending most of his time in Beijing now. But you know, also he worked the same political consultant, Mark Penn, who helped Thaksin Shinawatra become prime minister. Mark Penn was the campaign manager for Hillary Clinton 2 times, her 2 failed bids. You know, and so if Hillary Clinton had won, I was in Thailand for the election in 2016 when Trump defeated Hillary. A lot of my Thai friends were very happy about that because if she'd won, they said Thaksin Shinawatra will come right back in and destroy Thailand. So I think none of the countries in Asia have any illusions about Chinese power and how dangerous it is. But the poor, broken Maoist governments in Nepal, Laos, Cambodia, they really can't do anything because they have Maoist governments and they're taking all these BRI money. But I think the alliance of America, Australia, Japan, India is a serious one, and I hope it gets going soon.
Yeah. On Monday, the U.S. includes 38 Huawei affiliates into the entity list. You must be very pleased for that. Yeah. So, tell us your thoughts, please.
Well, I have followed this story again for many, many years about the technology transfer of American firms and American tech to the CCP and how dangerous it is. And I've been screaming about this for years. And again, as a result, I can't get any of my articles published, and I'm not welcome at any of these think tanks and human rights organizations. I read a report this morning. I wake up in the morning. The first thing I do is I read Xinhua. Yes, I'm crazy. Yes, God, I need to start my day with a drink instead of Xinhua. There was some PLA general saying, "Oh, this is not good. We need American technology. We're without the chips. We can't complete our goal of China 2025, where we dominate the internet all over the planet. This is bad." And I think you must also have noticed, it's very interesting. I forget her name. Probably couldn't pronounce it right because my Mandarin pronunciation isn't great. The lady, she's a high-level CCP official, criticized Papa Xi.
Oh, that's the one who used to be a lecturer of the so-called party school.
Yeah.
So she retired. You're talking about that person?
Yeah.
Well,
that's got a lot of attention though in American media, and I'm glad it did, because even though she is CCP and she doesn't want to bring down the party, but she said Papa Xi is responsible for a string of disasters. The reason this is important is because the narrative promoted by Western business is that the CCP does everything better than we can, and the CCP is got it all together, and they've taken care of the virus, and America's such a mess. Well, that's not true at all. Those of us who are China watchers know that's not true at all. But so this story got a lot of traction, and it indicates that, whoa, gee whiz, maybe everything isn't so smooth and cool, in the CCP after all.
Yeah, but I'm a bit cautious about that, because she only be critical of the leader, but actually the whole regime, the CCP regime, is very evil. So we don't think that we can solve the problems of the CCP's thing with just to say like changing the leader, because the regime itself is very, very evil. And we'd rather say select to take down the whole regime rather than change the leader, because it doesn't really solve the problem. If you have a new leader, it doesn't mean that the world will restore peace or justice. No, there's no way. The regime itself is very, very evil. Yeah, that's something I sort of like be cautious. So rather than say like a target on the specific leader, but we want to finish off the regime. So that's our aspiration. Yeah. The CCP, yes.
There will be no peace in this world unless they're gone. Oh, this brings us to the very important question of Hong Kong.
Yes, Hong Kong indeed.
Jimmy Lai,
arrested Jimmy Lai and 9 other activists.
To come kick ass.
Yeah. And that was happened on Monday, but they released the Jimmy Lai and other activists within about 30 hours. And yes, and according to my school's intelligence, that the CCP originally planned to extradite Jimmy Lai and the activists back to China, but the USA, EU, and the UK government made very strong statements and asked Beijing to release them.
Yes,
and so Beijing did. Yeah. So, and also the sanction.
Yes.
The sanction on the Hong Kong officials. Well, although they are, running dogs.
Carrie can't use her Amex card.
Yeah.
Damn it. Can't go get that new Prada suit she's going to wear with her Prada mask. Oh, for God's sakes. Well, this is very important because Jimmy Lai is a very beloved figure.
Yeah,
Jimmy Lai used to visit America all the time.
yeah,
He had a lot of American friends, and his publisher is a wonderful guy called Mark Simon, Simon.
yeah.
And I encourage all your viewers to follow Mark on Twitter and social media and support their work. And he had said, like, I think you told me this in one of our earlier conversations that, the plan was to extradite him to the mainland, and this would have been his fate.
Yeah,
And Agnes Chow, and all of them,
yeah.
This is how they treat you in a CCP prison. I have interviewed so many Tibetan friends and some Chinese friends and Uyghur friends, and this is what happened to them for the crime of splitism, just counter-revolutionary thought.
Yeah.
Which can be defined any way they want. Like, I don't like you. And so it's these guys. Oh, and here's my latest poster. Two new CCP boys in the hood.
The Sha Baolong.
These guys.
And and Lu Huining. Yes.
Yeah, I put them in there. There's Hong Kong Cat reading about it. Got two new CCP boys in the hood. They've been put on a sanctions list.
Yeah.
They can't come to America for, naughty nights with the wolf warriors. Woo, pay them in town. You can be sure they're still having parties. The rest of us can't go to a bar, but they're probably having parties in their penthouses. But the question is, why didn't they put the big shots?
Yeah, indeed.
Why didn't
they cross out Xi Jinping and Wang Qishan, Han Zheng, and this politburo and the CCP top bosses. Why did they cross that out? Who actually removed them from the sanction list? And also another point is the banks, Chinese banks, which have laundering the money.
Yep.
Yeah. So and which also fund all these espionage works and fund the infiltration and meddling of the American elections. So these Chinese banks should be sanctioned immediately. Why this hasn't happened? What happened?
Well, they have friends in high places.
Wow.
There's Wang Qishan with Hillary Clinton laughing up a storm. And there's Timothy Geithner, who was Secretary of the Treasury before Mnuchin, also total CCP apologist, total CCP bootlicker, and I don't know who this gentleman is, but, they got friends in high places. Because once upon leaving the Treasury, he just went right back to Wall Street, making a fortune. Those guys really seem to run our society much more than our politicians. And the fact that Dianne Feinstein can get away with enriching herself, using her elected office to enrich herself with murderers, genocidal murderers like Xi Jinping, and nobody says anything. That's the only reason. That's all I can think of. I've been watching it with despair my whole life. But thank God we still have some people like Mr. Bannon, the CCP slayer. I did this portrait of him because, I did that portrait of him because, if not for people like him telling it straight to the American people about the dangers of the CCP, all you get is this whitewash in the mainstream media. People will be ignorant. And we're in a death match. We're in a death match with the CCP. They declared war on the United States. They said so when the virus first hit America. PLA general, I forget his name, said, America has the COVID virus. Go ahead and die, America. That's not on the front page of the New York Times. But if it was Russia or India or Japan who'd said something like that, you would damn sure be front page news everywhere. They're not a threat to the survival of the United States. But the Hong Kong story is very important. Let's get back to the Hong Kong story, because at least they started, with these two guys,
Yeah.
Maybe it's a start, but I think it's really important, for people to know how come the big shots don't get on the list.
Indeed.
I think because the State Department is also filled with sinologists and Chinese spies. Packed. They always get the easy pass. It's, as we've discussed in some of our previous interviews that I got a lot of feedback from, it's so much easier for someone in Beijing to get an American visa than someone from Hong Kong, or certainly someone from India. It's so hard for our Indian friends to get visas, but Beijing, no problem. They just say you're going to give $500,000 real estate. They give you a green card. So I think, they're probably in the State Department there's all these people, apologists, saying, no, 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 we don't want to be too tough on the CCP. We still need to have dialogue and cooperation and engagement. See, I'm much more in Mr. Bannon's side, which I think we cut them off. No engagement.
No.
Hard decouple. Bring them down. And if we did that, we can see from the fear and the terror about like denying them the Huawei chips, that we could bring the CCP down very quickly if we denied them access to our capital markets and if we opened the firewall.
Yeah, indeed. We also know, we talk about Hong Kong, yeah. The Hong Kong government is now issue warrant to go after the activists who are actually American citizens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is part of the national security law enforcement.
Yeah.
So that is what's going on in Hong Kong. So what's your comment on that?
Not surprised, but it should be taken very seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, look what they did to the two Canadians after the daughter of the Huawei founder was held in Canada. They arrested these two Canadians, and one of them is going to get a death sentence. And I still see the Canadian government going, ooh, don't upset China. They're allowed a Chinese company to buy a gold mine in Canada.
Yeah.
So I think if they really do arrest an American citizen and send an American citizen to a black site, and this will be their fate. This will be their fate. No lawyer, you know, in Western democracies, you have a lawyer present. You're allowed to make one phone call when you get in jail. In a CCP prison, you're lucky if you come out alive. Put a cattle prod in your mouth, or if you're a woman, they'll rape you with an electric cattle prod. I have Tibetan women friends who were raped with electric cattle prods. Our good trusted partners, the CCP. Makes me sick. Well, we're going to know. We're just going to know, like, how far the CCP is willing to push the West, how far they're willing to go. And we're also going to find out how weak or strong the response of the West is going to be.
Yeah,
we'll find out, you know. I wouldn't be surprised if they really, really start behaving more aggressively in the 2.5 months left up to the election on November 3rd.
Yeah. Definitely.
Destabilize America more, you know.
Yeah,
That's
indeed. That's their plan. So, and you know, this is it's happened for the Middle East, and after 49 years, Israel and the United Arab Emirates finally normalized their diplomatic relations. So, what's your thought?
Thank God. You know, it's a positive thing. But the New York Times is whining about it. Like, this can't be a good thing because it comes out of the Trump administration. You know, they're just so desperate to go back to the way things were, you know. And but I know my Israeli friends are very happy about it. Some Israeli friends of mine were emailing me saying this is a good thing. You know, the people of the Middle East just want what everyone wants. They just want peace, and they just want to live their lives. I've been many times to the Middle East, to Lebanon. I once went to Saudi Arabia. I've been 3 times to Israel. It's a very beautiful country.
Yes.
You know, Jerusalem is a wonderful city. It's like Varanasi in India, one of the most ancient pilgrimage cities in the world. And 30% of Israeli citizens are actually of Arab descent. They have Israeli passports and they can go to their mosques and so forth. And so I think this is a positive thing because the CCP has been working on Israel.
Yeah, indeed.
Really going in there with money and with promises of this and that and the other.
Yeah. You know, the US and Israel reported near to close a deal excluding Huawei from FG as well.
I hope so.
Yes.
You know.
At least this normalization of Israel and an Arabian country like the United Arab Emirates may make this region more peaceful and so that more immune to the influence of the CCP. Because CCP would like to explore the conflicts, the instability, etc., which is great.
All I can say is, inshallah, it happens. Inshallah, that there will be peace in the Middle East and the CCP's influence will start to erode. They'll still try, You know, as long as they can, they'll keep trying. No, they never seem to give up, which is why the only way we'll ever have peace in this world is a death to the CCP.
That's your new hobby. Blast. Yes, blood paint the China Daily, right? The China Daily.
Yes. I walk around New York City with my with a big bottle of red acrylic paint. And every time I see a China Daily news box, I pour the red paint on it, as you can see. Now, people ask me, why do I do this? I said, well, I used to kick them over, but that doesn't really do much because then they just put them back up. But this paint is really hard to get off. You need a special cleanser. And so I go buy the news box like just 2 or 3 months later. It's still got the red on it. You know, I don't care if they know it's me. Again, you know, like this liberal friend of mine called me up because I was posting this all on my social media, and I got 2,000 likes. The first time I did it. It was the most likes I ever got for anything in my life. So,
oh, wow.
Be careful, Maura. That's private property. Careful? They just destroyed my city. They just destroyed my country. Yeah. So they should feel a little heat. I don't care if they know it's me. Let them come after me. I'll sue them for damages. I'll sue them for mental distress. You can do that in America. So because of the CCP, I wake up every morning and I read Xinhua, and I'm going crazy. I need to leave. I need a Hong Kong movie star to come and rescue me. Rescue me. Hong Kong connection. Yes. So, this brings me to another little story I want to share to you about the collusion between media and the CCP and China Daily. Like the New York Times, as we mentioned earlier, has quietly announced they're no longer going to be running their weekly China Daily Insert
page. Yeah.
Which is just, I mean, I read this thing for years. I felt nauseated by it. It was just so obviously Chicom propaganda. Can't you tell by reading it? You know, the syntax, the grammar. It's just so obvious. They talk about the motherland and, you know, the bourgeois capitalist roaders that they're going to defeat. Right there in the New York Times. But it worked. A lot of people kind of thought it meant China was evolving into a Western democracy with rule of law. Just because I bought ads in the New York Times. But no. So it was about like, 8 years ago, 7, 10, I can't remember, but like 8, 9 years ago. Then he was the new publisher of the New York Times, a Brit, an Englishman called Mark Thompson. And he'd been with the BBC, and there was this big dinner for him at the Harvard Club of New York. Yeah. It's filled with Chicom money. And anytime I go there and I have a drink there, you know, I just see these Chicom guys sitting there watching everything, and they're taking notes. And you can always tell. I can always tell if someone's CCP. I just know immediately when I look at them. They've got this dead thing in the eyes. And they react to me in a visceral way. So there's this big dinner. They ate 800 people underneath the big elephant. You know, there's a dead elephant head in this big room. And he's getting up there and he gives his speech like, in the digital age, we've all got to be creative about how we deliver the best news with that cutting edge that we expect from the Times brand. With challenges face us in a new digital era, but we're going to surmount them and keep giving you what you want. Times coverage that you depend on for you know, information and judgment about the world. Yeah, blah, blah, blah is going on. You know, so then the Q&A comes up, and everybody's going, they're swooning over him. And I'm sitting in the back of the room. I go, you know, this guy really makes me mad. I'm going to give him a hard time. I love doing this, you know. So I get up there and I have my little black suit on and stuff and get to the microphone. I go, Mr. Thompson, I understand, you know, there are problems with, you know, keeping your revenue stream going with the internet and challenges. But I find it very disturbing every week when I open the New York Times and I see full page color ads from China Daily. Now, I didn't have this picture with me. And so I went through the laundry list of the CCP's crimes against humanity, genocide, concentration camps, forced organ harvesting, Hong Kong, Tibet, you know, the whole thing. He's looking more and more nervous. There's dead silence in the room. So I get to my final question. I say, I know you need money in the internet age, but do you really have to take money from the Chinese Communist Party? And he's stumbling. And he goes, we don't tell our advertisers what to do with their own shops, you know. We try to stay out of that. I go, so you don't have a problem with concentration camps? That's okay with you? You don't mind? The next question. So He's freaking out. And so it just so happens that at the kind of intimate dinner upstairs afterwards for the VIP crowd, I was seated at the head table right across from Mr. Thompson. And
Oh
he's looking
dear.
at me with hate. Hey, he's chewing his food. God. Oh, what is that girl doing here? Get rid of her. You know, and I'm kind of smiling at him. Hi. Glad to know that you work for the CCP. I just wanted to clarify that. You're on my list. I'm going to come get you. You know, because like somebody has to do it. You know, otherwise these guys get a walk. They get the easy pass. I mean, I'm always the person they dread at the Asia Society. For years, me, the Asia Society of New York always has some talk about China's growth, China's future, you know, how China's going to run the 21st century, blah, blah, blah. And there always be some American banker up there with his fancy suit going, I don't think it's our place to tell Chinese how to run their country. You know, and I said, oh, so you don't have a problem with concentration camps? That's okay with you. Get that woman out of here. You know, I was once asked to leave, actually, you know. I bought my ticket. I said, why do I have to leave? I paid $15 to hear you praise the CCP. Can I at least get under your skin by asking you a tough question? And look at, oh, this is my best moment, though. Surely you've heard of the Council on Foreign Relations, right? Richard Haas. Steve Bannon is always going after Mr. Haas on War Room. He's one of those New York intellectuals, you know, who's always praising the CCP, and he runs the Council on Foreign Relations, and it's this fancy building. It looks like a Mayfair building in London, you know, on the Upper East Side, and there's like fancy chairs and like paintings, and you walk in, and they were having a discussion about religious freedom. This was 2008, when the Beijing Blood Olympics were going on. So I took my friend, the Tibetan monk who survived 33 years in a Chinese labor camp. We've discussed him on the show, Paul Gatso.
Yeah.
Because I called and I said, can I bring a guest? They said, certainly, Miss Moynihan, you can bring a guest. They didn't know the guest was a Tibetan monk torture survivor. And there are all these Chinese guys that are CCP. It's all CCP. And they literally kind of lurched at us when we came in. Like they were trying to strangle us. And I held Paulden's hand and we sat down. And they're all looking and they're taking notes. And they were coming up to me afterwards like they were trying to physically attack me. That's okay. I just kind of smile. I go like this. I was never allowed to go to the Council on Foreign Relations ever again. Okay. I just want to
you had your time.
Skin, expose their hypocrisy, their criminal alliance with the CCP.
Yeah.
See, we Tibet people are useful for some things. We're useful because we're the only people all these years who stood up at these forums and outed these people, exposed them, made them uncomfortable. And it's not enough, obviously, but at least somebody did something, you know?
Yeah. I saw like years ago, I was informed that in the USA, you have this bill which prevent the revolving door effect in terms that you have this government officials, they should be banned from lobbying for the foreign governments for a certain time of a certain time after they exit from their posts in the government, but it doesn't seem to work anymore now.
I don't think I could be wrong, but I don't think that bill was ever passed.
Oh, right.
You know, it's one thing to like we've introduced bills year after year after year on, you know, Tibet, and just because you introduce a bill doesn't mean it went anywhere. It takes a long time for the bill to pass. And but this bill is being discussed more and more. Anders Kaur has discussed it, Dr. Kaur, with his work on the CCP, which is excellent. And I encourage all of your viewers to follow Dr. Anders Kaur on Twitter, and his posts are superb and his articles are superb. But I mean, for example, here's a perfect example. Senator Max Baucus. Oh, it's too bad I don't have a picture of him, but you can be sure he'd be right up there with all of his friends in the Democratic Party who love CCP cash. He was senator from Montana. He wasn't a very distinguished senator. I met him many, many times, and when he served with my dad. Well, he was Obama's ambassador to China, the second one. The first one was Gary Locke, and the second one was Max Baucus. and he was in Beijing for about 3.5 years in the second term of Obama. And he now is a lobbyist for Alibaba and a bunch of other Chinese military companies. And he's a registered lobbyist, and it's just disgusting the things that he says. He gets, and again, the media just gives him an easy pass. He said a couple of months ago that the China bashing was in Washington was like being in Nazi Germany. What the hell? And it was a one-day story. It just kind of died out. And he he flies under the radar. He's made himself an absolute fortune working for the CCP. He still gets wined and dined. He still gets, to go, invite invitations to all these parties. Me, I can't even set foot in the Council on Foreign Relations. You can be sure they give him a special seat up front. So I don't think that bill has passed, and it should be, because it's really the senators can go on the floor of the Senate for the rest of their lives, even if they were censured and even if they left under an ethical cloud. I can't go on the floor of the Senate. You can't. The only people who can set floor on the floor of the Senate, which is like Parliament in England, are senators, maintenance people, the aides of the senator who might bring them a document, and doctors and a priest or a rabbi, or in case someone dies. And there have been cases of senator having a heart attack and he's dying. So those are the only people in American society who are allowed to set foot on the Senate floor, and ex-senators can do it. So Max Baucus, he has access to the Senate floor, and there's no microphones or anything, so he can go up to some of his former colleagues and yank their chain about Alibaba and no on tariffs, and we got to be nice to the Chinese. There's no sense in not being nice. And besides, if you're nice to the Chinese, when you get out of here, I'll reward you with a nice fat job working for the CCP.
Yeah,
that's how they do it. My father found this outrageous. And when my father retired in 2000, he never once went back to the Senate. Not once. That shows his integrity. And he didn't become a lobbyist for a foreign government. He went back to teaching. He went back to being a professor, which is also not a high-paying job. He never took one penny from the American people. And I never used my access to power, ever, for anything except to try to get people to wake up to the danger of the CCP. But that's why I find it, I take personal offense at Hunter Biden, the son of Joe Biden, when he was vice president. He was senator from Delaware for many years. I take personal offense that Hunter Biden has made millions and millions of dollars working with the CCP. And the only way he got access is because his father was vice president and a senator before that. Yeah. He has no accomplishments of his own. I never did that. And the Democrats are all letting it go. I mean, all these Democrats are calling me up, arguing with me about when I'm posting this on social media. Maura, that's being unfair. I don't think Hunter did anything illegal. I said, oh, really? Oh, really? What if it was a Republican? What if Ivanka Trump came back with $1.5 billion from the CCP? I think you'd be very upset. That the dead silence, no answer there. Because, the hypocrisy is astonishing. And a lot of Republicans go along with the CCP agenda. It's bipartisan. Very, very few people ever stand up against them. That's why we're in this crisis, right?
Yeah. Are there other things you'd like to address?
Well, I think we really do have to keep our eye on the flooding in China. Yeah. Because this is a story that is getting no coverage in the West. Just a little mention here, maybe a little. Oh, it's a very wet monsoon. It's not a wet monsoon. It's biblical in proportion. Yeah. And of course, this comes back to why Tibet matters. Yeah. Because for 70 years now, they have yoked and choked Tibet's rivers, and they have deforested. Sorry, I had the map. Sorry, I held it wrong. This is the area of eastern Tibet. And I went there 25 years ago this month. I went to Kham province. We can discuss this in a future interview. I drove all the way. It took a whole week in a truck. Me and 3 Tibetan guys in a truck. We drove from Lhasa to Tumdo. Tumdo is the capital of Kham. Because Tibet was 3 regions. The Choklasun in Tibetan. Amdo, which is the birthplace of the Dalai Lama, which has the world's largest uranium deposits. And near the Dalai Lama's birthplace is the 9th Academy, which is the or oldest nuclear site for the PLA. Yeah. And then Kham and Utsam. And what this CCP allows us, the Tibetan Autonomous Region is really just a slice of Utsang and Kham province. It doesn't show all of Tibet. They partitioned Tibet in about 17 different provinces. Well, Chamdo, the capital of Kham, where I went, I could see this vast project of deforestation. There was virgin forests which protected China, protected southern China, the Sichuan, Gansu area from flooding. Well, they've deforested all of that, and they sent the logs back to the mainland for development and construction. And I photographed this and documented it because whole hillsides, you can see whole mountains, are just completely clear cutting. This is also contributing to the flooding in China.
Yeah.
The deforestation of Tibet's virgin forest, never discussed. No one knows anything about it. But this is the cost of appeasing the CCP on the occupation of Tibet, because the Chinese people now have to pay a high price too.
Yeah.
And a lot of these rivers are transnational, but the Yellow River and the Yangtze River go from Tibet into China. Now there's floods on the Yellow, floods on the Yangtze. It's probably just going to get worse. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what Jiang Zemin and his friend, oh, where is she? Where did the picture go? I just have to look at it one more time. Oh, yeah. We just have to see what Beijing Dianne and her friend Jiang Zemin and her husband Richard Blum will do. Oh, here's an idea that I have before we close. I want Guo Media viewers to write emails to Senator Feinstein's offices. You can find them on the internet. I have written many, many times, like that you can just put your message. Also, easier to get to maybe, and also a real soft point is Richard Blum's American Himalayan Foundation. Did we just cut off?
Oh dear. So yeah,
No,
it's my problem.
Okay. That's all right. I think we did enough for today. We can, write to them. We have to get people to write to them.
Yeah, I meant to make a screenshot of you having this photo. So
you can do it
that's
again.
why. So then I will use it as a cover.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's lovely. So maybe I just
Did you
press
get
it.
the shot?
Yes, very beautiful. I will show you.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Where's the Jiang Zemin? I want to find the. Oh, where it is. Well, here's Hillary Clinton laughing with Wang Quishang. Trying to find out. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Let's take this one too for good measure. Here's a good friend.
Yeah. Lovely.
Yep.
I just
I'll
wonder
send
whether
you
I
the
can
links.
use two.
I'll send you, once we get off, Ming, I'll send you the links to her offices and his office at American Himalayan Foundation. Just flood them with emails and handwritten letters too. Flood. Calls even too. Phone calls. Do it. They have to respond to questions from the public.
Yeah. Why
It's
they
disgusting.
collaborate with the CCP.
Yeah, exactly. Ask them. No one's ever asked them. They got away with it all these years. Well, we're going to change that.
Wonder, so as far as I'm concerned, that the bill in terms of strip the CCP government of sovereignty immunity, is it passed or not? I know it's introduced.
No, because the Senate went into recess, and there she was, the senior senator from California, the ranking Democrat, because the Senate is now controlled by the Republicans. They're the majority. But she went when the Democrats had it. She was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and she's defending the CCP. It's disgusting.
So it's because of her.
Yeah.
So
because of her. She held it up.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to confirm that. Okay,
Yeah,
that's the bad news.
Well, let's make it a project of World Media to go after her, because she is very, very powerful, but she kind of flies under the radar. And California's economy is the 5th largest in the whole world. So it's very important to go after her and just send letters, make phone calls, everything. You can get the Guo Army to do that, the new federal state. Why not do a protest in front of her Senate office in San Francisco? If I was there, I'd join you. Do a sit-in. Get the new federal state of China. Get those people to go in front of Senator Feinstein's state office and ask her, why do you work for the CCP? You're an elected official of the United States. Why? does your husband's firm called Newbridge Capital or something
Yeah.
has made him a multi-billionaire working for the CCP. Can you tell us, Senator Feinstein, which side you are on?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, I love you, Ming.
Love you too.